Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at Bourgogne, one of my absolute favorites, and I want to see if it's still as good as I remember. We're going to start things off with the live recording to the start of this game. Enjoy. Yo, what is up, Mr. Hawaii? How are we doing today? That might be the best salvo I've ever had on a Hawaii. Oh my goodness, Bourgogne! We 2-salvo 100,000 damage. Holy crap, man. I don't even care that we got robbed there. I don't even care, bro. Yeah. This is the ship I remember, bro. Holy moly. Wow. All right, maybe a little over the top, but that was maybe my best start of a match ever. Having over 100,000 damage in the first 2.5 minutes is crazy. I did have 3 salvos though, okay? It was a pot shot at a battleship at range was my first salvo, and then we got those 2. Crazy stuff out of Bourgogne. That is a lot for Roussillon to compare to. I still think Roussillon is great as a dockyard ship, tier 9 certainly, but Bourgogne is still way better in my opinion. If I'm gonna choose, I will play Bourgogne all the time. I find these guns to be just more consistent. The AP here does not have the overmatch like 406s do, but typically I don't need that. We're so fast, we're so maneuverable, we're able to get 2 broadsides, and then I value the higher sigma parameters as well as the faster reload that these guns get on top of volume of fire. Roussillon has battlecruiser dispersion 1.7 sigma, but Bourgogne gets 1.8 sigma battleship dispersion alongside more shells, which is why I find it a little more consistent into those broadsides. Yes, that was nearly 60k into that Hawaii in one salvo. That's the first time I've ever hit a Hawaii for more than like 20,000 damage into its broadside. So I was very happy. Very happy. Of course, Bourgogne is also a pretty good HE spammer. In fact, I'll have a game at the end to show you the typical playstyle, I suppose, where you're spamming a majority of HE and then swapping over to armor piercing. That was nearly 12,000 damage from HE alone, and then a double perma-fire on this poor Wisconsin. You can't really do that as easily in Roussillon because of the reload. It's hard to guarantee those follow-up fires. I do just think Roussillon is at a tier 9 power level. I think that's fair to say. But Bourgogne is absolutely incredible still these days. It's a steel ship though, so if you don't have steel available to you, if you find it difficult to get that, Roussillon gets you most of this playstyle. However, I think the reload and the shell volume is a big factor in Bourgogne's favor for me personally. Having that reload be closer to battle cruiser levels instead of firmly in battleship slow reload feels so much better on a Bourgogne. Nice little double strike here as well. Swap over to that AP when people go broadside. It is well worth it. We can stack damage very quickly in this ship. However, what happens if we misposition or we try to position a little too close to an enemy flank? Well, Bourgogne is surprisingly maneuverable still. I've been loving having rudder mod on this ship these days thanks to having incredible engine boosts that give us our propulsion. So this allows us to maneuver around a lot of shells at range. We're also pretty good at longer ranges with shell velocity, allowing us to dev strike a Des Moines at nearly 25 kilometers. Bourgogne on a flank is dangerous, and I think it's that shell volume. There's just some consistency that comes with having a lot of shells to be fired. May not look as pretty on certain salvos as battlecruiser dispersion might, but I just value those at 12 shells. Here we're going to get into an engagement against Montana, Vermont, and crucially, a Bremen behind an island. If you didn't know, a Bremen is very powerful. Check out some of the videos from last month when it released. But a Bourgogne on half HP, or actually soon to be less than that, with using our damage control, using our heal, you'd think it'd be a death sentence when a Bremen is able to farm us down so quickly. But look at how we're able to maneuver around these shells. I really value the extra maneuverability that this ship has over a standard battleship. And this is one of the reasons why I've been enjoying rudder mod. When we want to get away from a situation like this one, it's really nice to be able to dive around some of these shells. A little bit more like a battle cruiser, not like a traditional battleship. The ship has 32 millimeters of armor everywhere. It gets absolutely farmed by a Bremen if it can hit us, crucially. And Roussillon will be able to do similar dodging. Now, you will get overmatched in your bow and stern, but that's why I didn't focus on that quite so much. With this Bourgogne playstyle, we're trying to avoid some of that incoming damage. So if you don't have a Bourgogne and you don't think you're getting this steal, highly recommend Roussillon. I absolutely love this playstyle, finding these flanks. The hulls are pretty much the same outside of the bow stern armor. Maneuverability is very much the same. The speed, if you're using brisk and engine boost at the same time, you're getting up over 40 knots. You're able to easily capitalize on enemy weaknesses, and you still have the reload booster. Now, Roussillon's, of course, takes longer to come back, which feels more punishing. The longer base reload also makes it feel a little bit worse. But in situations like this, it's going to feel equally as good, where we try to help on the destroyer fight like a good battleship player supporting our team, but then we might miss out on the broadside battleship at 13 kilometers. Not so when a reload booster is available to us. Unfortunately, no citadels there. It's a little hard to aim over islands sometimes. But the reload booster gets us to that third salvo quick enough before the Georgia gets behind the taller island, and we get another 20k into him. And that's where I find the Bourgogne feels just a little bit better to me, right? That was my main complaint with Roussillon's reload booster, the long reload on that consumable, but also the main guns. It didn't feel like I got to that third salvo during the reload booster very quickly at all. And that kind of was confirmed here on playing Bourgogne some more. But it's tier 9, right? It's not fair to compare a tier 9 ship to a tier 10, right? Well, the matchmaker might say otherwise these days. I don't know about you, but for me, tier 9 matchmaker looks pretty similar to tier 10 these days. It is so often dealing with those up tiers. Nice citadels there on Georgia, being able to capitalize on these flanks. Notice how I'm not really positioning myself differently. I'm not using that top speed. Bourgogne's strength, the Roussillon strength, the strength of this hull is that you can reposition quickly. Doesn't mean you have to. If you find a good position, just kind of chill there with your great concealment, like 13 and a bit kilometers detection. You want that broadside shot on the defense, but then Georgia takes the opportunity to turn out. We got our reload booster up. I'm not sure if Roussillon would have had its available. That longer consumable reload is certainly a downside, but it allows us to catch the Georgia. And then even more broadsides. Jinan, poor Jinans. That's good dispersion. We have a bit of a tendency on these around New Year's videos of dev striking Jinans. I think last year it was the Incomp. There it is. New year, new Jinan dev strike. Light cruisers are pretty tough when you get caught broadside on. So a lot of AP focus, right? And that's where I really do like Roussillon a lot, right? You have better pen values on Roussillon than you do on Bourgogne. Just that inconsistency of less shell volume and longer reloads or Sigma, that kind of thing. But what about HE spam playstyle? Roussillon is nowhere near as good as Bourgogne. I'm going to try something new here because we're watching this entire game. This one goes on for a long time. And I'm mostly playing it as a pre-kited HE spammer. I use that term a lot. I realize I haven't maybe explained it very much in videos. Pre-kited to me just means, well, we're in a kited position like this one. We're ready to run away from a flank. But pre-kited means we're already in that position before we even know if this flank is going to be the enemy's push or not. It's maybe the most boring, lame playstyle ever, and yet this was my best damage game. Unfortunately, I love AP. I love the dev strike so much, and yet the first game I played like this, yes, I played entirely AP, mostly AP games, and then decided to do at least one to show you guys what standard Bourgogne playstyle looks like. Yeah, that one was my best game. Not necessarily the most satisfying, though, because, yes, we just sit at the back spamming HE. We have plenty of range, we have plenty of shell velocity to easily hit all these guys. Our reload booster is there to guarantee those follow-up fires when someone damage controls, or if someone makes the mistake of turning away at medium ranges for battleships, even longer ranges for cruisers, you can swap over to the armor piercing real quick and then try to get that salvo in. And then swap back to the HE. This is a very typical Bourgogne play. I don't enjoy this as much, even though it is very, very solid at this role. I think HE is just far less satisfying. You should also know that HE damage is, of course, less impactful. Fires are 100% healable, so getting 200k in HE and fire damage is oftentimes going to be less impactful than maybe 100k, 120k in AP damage, especially if you're citadeling those radar cruisers, that kind of thing. It's extremely valuable damage where farming down battleships, it's not really helping your team all that much. However, it is rather chill, okay? I don't blame you if you're wanting to just relax at the end of the day and not deal with the stresses of trying to push. It is very hard to push these days, especially in a Bourgogne. The ship does not have too much HP, and of course, it has very little armor. So surviving, getting shot at, is rather difficult. It's worth swapping to that AP at those longer ranges, though. If you already have a Bourgogne, I mean, you're probably going to get Roussillon anyway. You're a more experienced player. You probably have the doubloons from the last few months of 2025 playing. You should just get Roussillon. It is a good ship, but will you play it that often? For me personally, well, maybe not the most fair comparison because I'm often playing a new ship every day because we're making videos, of course, but I personally would choose Bourgogne to play. If I was just chilling, playing for fun, and I wanted to play this playstyle, I would pick Bourgogne every single time. That doesn't mean Roussillon is not worth getting. I'm just a little disappointed with Roussillon in comparison. And again, I know that's not fair because it is a tier 9 versus a tier 10. But Roussillon would not compare in this sort of playstyle at all. The longer reload, way worse HE DPM, of course, but also fires per minute. Roussillon gets 49% fire chance to 36% fire chance on Bourgogne. Seems a lot better, right? Well, fires per minute, right, takes into account number of shells and reload. Maybe not dispersion necessarily, but I would say they're somewhat comparable thanks to battle cruiser dispersion worse sigma, and then battleship dispersion better sigma, and of course better shell volume on Bourgogne. 9.3 fires per minute on Bourgogne versus 7.3 on Roussillon. It's not going to be quite as consistent at this playstyle, this HE spamming playstyle. Bourgogne is surprisingly solid in that role, by the way. Something like Conqueror gets 11.5 fires per minute. We're not that level, but we're close. And crucially, we get the reload booster to get those, not guaranteed, but try to guarantee follow-up fires, and that is not taken into account. It's a surprisingly competent HE spammer, which is why you see it played as an HE spammer a lot of the time. I, however, prefer that AP playstyle. And while I'm thinking about it, Marseille is actually a pretty good comparison to these ships too. If you don't have the steel, if you're not grinding through the Dockyard, of course, Dockyards are best value when you're actually finishing all those missions. Otherwise, they're very expensive to buy through. And you're wanting that reload boosting, flanking, not a tanking role, but flanking battleship playstyle. Marseille gets you a lot of that, honestly, especially if you slap outnumbered on it. That ship is surprisingly accurate, and you get comparable reload. It's a little bit better, of course, but 24-second reload on Marseille, 28-second base reload on Bourgogne. It's kind of similar. I will prefer Bourgogne, of course. I am much more interested in that battleship role, something that can tank a little bit more than a Marseille can. But if you like cruisers a lot better, and you value that battle cruiser dispersion in particular, Marseille is an interesting comparison too. I like this kind of playstyle though a lot these days because, let's be honest, the full tanking role, you need some absurd gimmicks these days to tank any sort of incoming damage. Feels a lot better to avoid that damage altogether through your maneuverability or just your concealment. Be a little bit sneaky, flanking around the map, that kind of thing. Picking your engagements rather than just full sending it in. Those gimmicks being like Sibir's one heal, you would need maybe Valparaiso's F key, that kind of thing. Even just Libertad armor levels, that kind of thing is required to try and tank these days. Otherwise, even the old school tanking battleships like Montana's, they really can't anymore. So that brings the playstyle a little closer to something like a Bourgogne, where you just not have the speed and the shell velocity and the reload booster, just the base reload even, to reach out and catch a carrier like this, even though we were just trying to farm that Montana. It's really valuable to have this reload booster. I find it very, very enjoyable. I highly recommend you try to get something along this playstyle at some point. It is extremely fun to have. If you've always found battleships to be a little too slow and clumsy, I think you got to give this a try. Something like Marseille, too, is a great free example that takes time to grind, but can be definitely worth that grind forward. Now, let me know in the comments what you think about Bourgogne and Roussillon, of course, but I'd also be curious to hear what you have to say about this 2x fast-forwarded full match. it's HE spamming. I don't really want to show the entire match at normal speed. I find that to be a little bit too boring, but maybe some of these games are good to show as well. It's good to just not skip them, but at a 2x multiplier on the speed could be a decent way of compromise, perhaps. We get the E, of course, in this one. My best game just had to be the boring HE spammer. I can't believe it. It's not the most satisfying, but it was my best game. I guess it makes sense why so many people play this ship as that pre-cutted HE spammer. So I had a pretty good time in Bourgogne today. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Of course, there's a lot down to RNG with battleships. As always, all of them struggle with this. See that last salvo on the Azuma that we caught broadside in the first clip. Absolutely smashed both that Hawaii and Azuma, and then suddenly, I think aim bug, but I don't know. Maybe it was just RNG, but those bugs can be very frustrating in a battleship, and if you're getting that on the opportunities you do have on broadsides, then it's not going to feel very good at all. But that's all battleships, so I can't really hold that against things like Bourgogne and Roussillon. It is worth mentioning, though, of course. Here is the build that I was running. Greedy. I know 2025's over. That was my year of greed, I guess, considering some of the builds that I was running, full lighthouses and that. I'm not sure what we'll call 2026, maybe the year of aggressive builds, but a little more sensible. Notably giving up fire prevention. Risky, okay, risky. But like I said, we are not playing a tanking role. We're playing a flanking role, and the way I see it is, this is hard to play, but if I'm in a situation where fire prevention is the difference between my ship going down and my ship staying alive, that's a pretty narrow subset of situations, and more than likely, I just mispositioned, okay? Just made a mistake earlier on in where I went on the map. So that's where I am trying to justify myself using Furious and Heavy AP. It's much easier to just run fire prevention, okay? But I was trying to greed it out, and we got some good matches as well. Trying to use Brisk here as well, thanks to great detection and surprisingly okay turret traverse. I know 41 seconds doesn't sound great, but considering we're taking no turret traverse buffs, that is all right, especially with main battery mod making it a little bit worse for us here. Things like Yamato and that, it's like well over 60 seconds. It's still slow. I would love to get Grease the Gears in here, but gotta sacrifice something to greed out things like Furious and extra heals, that kind of thing. Concealment Expert. You could go no extra healing and then just go with fire prevention instead. I think that is a perfectly reasonable way to go about it as well. Please take Gun Feeder though. It'll allow you to swap from HE over to that armor piercing. Please try to shoot a little more AP in your Bourgogne. I see so many just pure HE Bourgognes, and it makes me a little bit sad because the AP is so good. It is so much fun. Yes, go and reload mod, of course. We got more than enough range, concealment, and rudder mod. Maybe give it a go. It's not great in every scenario. Speed juking becomes quite a bit worse at low speed in particular. With the engine boost, that helps it, but I really do value this for that example like I showed, where we need to get out of a bad situation quickly and try to avoid some of that incoming damage. Steering gears helps a lot there. Gets us down to 13.3 second rudder shift. Now, some of the more modern examples of battleships have that better than that base. So on some of these old battleships, we gotta take some of these upgrades to even get close to their rudder shifts, but it is worth using, as is engine boost mod on a Bourgogne in particular. If you have a lot of steel, probably should have enough to get your engine boost mod. However, with Roussillon, you don't necessarily need to take that. I think both of these ships are quite fun. I really like this playstyle. Bart as well, another example here. Champagne, I think, plays a little bit differently than these ones. So even though it's similar-ish to Roussillon, I prefer the Bourgogne hull, that kind of thing. So very fun to take a look at Bourgogne. Again, I gotta say, I really enjoy this ship a lot, even still today in 2026. And Roussillon does get me most of that playstyle. Perhaps I'm just a little bit biased towards something like Bourgogne, where if I get so close to that playstyle, but not quite, I find myself wishing I was in a Bourgogne instead of a Roussillon. And maybe that's why I was a little bit harder on that ship. But let me know in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.